And it gives me the great pleasure to announce that the enforcer, Archie Roberts, has been nominated for the Rising Star.
The Bombers play the West Coast Eagles this week, this Friday, Good Friday in Perth, the old rivals from the 1990s, the jacket-waving match, if you remember back then. And this has banana skin written over it, potentially, of course. It's a match that, if you look at West Coast form, Essendon obviously should win. Everybody should beat the West Coast Eagles on their current form. But you must treat teams as if they're going to play their best football. And you do have to remember that despite the fact West Coast have been in poor form, they actually came pretty close to beating the Brisbane Lions a few weeks ago. They led Brisbane at every change and Brisbane overran them late. So you just never know. And we have struggled in recent times against the West Coast Eagles. We beat them by a goal in Perth. We beat them by 1 point at Marvel Stadium when they looked like causing a major upset a couple of years ago. So we have only just crept over the line on a couple of occasions against them. So we're not going to underestimate them. Obviously, we're not the kind of club that is good enough at the moment to be underestimating anyone. But this would be a very, very good win. Any win on the road, no matter who it's against, is like gold. If you can just go interstate, get the 4 points, come back, that is absolutely fantastic. It's good for team morale. So this is obviously a match that we need to win. There is no other option but to win this game, given West Coast form. And we're going to get into the details of this match and what we need to do and some of the key stats from both teams that are going to be relevant to the outcome of this match. So first things first, congratulations to Archie Roberts for winning the Rising Star nominee for this week. Well deserved. He had 28 possessions against the Demons, 107 ranking points, 8 marks, 6 tackles. He's our second nominee of the last couple of years. Nate Caddy was a nominee last year. We haven't had too many over the last couple of years, but we had one last year and one this year. But that great performance that he put against Melbourne was following on from a very good performance the week before against Port Adelaide, where he had more 1%ers than any other player on the ground. Coaching staff absolutely love him, and it's a well-deserved accolade for him. Let's hope he goes on to bigger and better things. So the changes for the team against West Coast. Well, there's going to be at least one forced change. Unfortunately, as we may have heard, Nick Bryan has done his ACL. He's out for the season. This obviously does impact our dual ruck strategy, which Nick was a big part of. But Peter Wright, of course, is now not injured, and he kicked 3 goals in the reserves clash on the weekend and could be right to come back in if the club want to go with a dual ruck strategy. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think what will probably happen is that Sartis will come in for Nick Bryan, for the simple reason being that West Coast ruck stocks are not great. They have Bailey Williams as their number 1 ruck, who is no superstar. And they don't really have anyone else that can ruck apart from him. They actually need a ruckman pretty badly, West Coast. So we don't really need 2 ruckmen against West Coast. They could pick Peter Wright and exploit West Coast down there with his height. But I think the right decision to go would be just have the 1 ruckman and bring in Elijah Sartis, who now has had a couple of weeks to recover from his broken hand. If he is right to recover from his broken hand, we'll see. And I think that would probably be a more logical change and a more of a horses for courses selection strategy. It depends who you're up against. If you're up against a team with a stronger ruckman, if we were playing, we don't play Melbourne 2 weeks in a row, but for argument's sake, you're playing Melbourne, Max Gawn in there, you might go with the 2 ruckmen, which is obviously the strategy we had last week. But I think Sartis in there for Nick Bryan is probably the way to go. The other option is that they might bring in Todd Goldstein, who has been in stellar form in the VFL. He was one of the best players on the ground in the previous VFL match that he's played. The idea was this year that he was going to be playing a bit more of a mentoring role, but obviously with the loss of Nick Bryan, that means he is obviously being more of a specialist ruckman than Peter Wright. Peter Wright is, of course, more of a forward. But Todd Goldstein could well come into the team as a ruckman if that's the way that Brad Scott wanted to go. Brad Scott is obviously a big fan of Todd Goldstein, so that wouldn't be surprising if they go with that. I wonder what will happen with Peter Wright. He was on the bit of an outer. He was on the outer a little bit, I think, with the club, and probably wasn't considered to be a huge part of the plans this year. But we've had Langford go down. We've had Tom Edwards go down, and now we've had Nick Bryan go down. So this does open the door for Peter Wright in a number of different roles that he could play. I don't think he'll be in the team this week, but we'll see. If you like this content, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. It doesn't cost any money. It takes 1 second. It'll help the YouTube algorithm and it will ensure that you never miss a video. About 75% of the people watching this are not subscribed. I would really, really appreciate it if you could do that. So where is this match going to be won and lost? Well, let's take a look at some of the key numbers. If you can see from this table here, that is the disposals for the year. We are number 1. That is the third column in. You see the D there? D for disposals, 397.5 on average per game for the Bombers. We are number 1 in the competition for disposals, and West Coast are number 18. So we average about 100 more disposals per game than the West Coast Eagles. That is a huge amount. So we're definitely playing a bit more of a possession game this year, but it's worth looking into that a little bit more. We are second in uncontested possessions in the competition with 253. I thought this was encapsulated a little bit with the way we played against Melbourne. We controlled the game, we chipped it around, we controlled the ball. I don't think we wasted the ball. There's a difference between having a lot of uncontested possessions and wasting it, which I think we probably have done in past years. I think we're being a little bit more sensible with that this year. But we're second in the competition for uncontested possessions, and we are 9th for contested possessions at 135. West Coast are 18th in contested possessions for 121 and 18th in uncontested possessions. Not surprisingly, because like I said, they are last in overall disposals at number 18. They're 17th, the West Coast, for inside 50s. We are not much better at 14th, but we are being a little bit more efficient with the way that we're getting the ball in there. It's not always about getting more inside 50s. We had a lot of inside 50s last year. We were one of the best teams, but we just couldn't score when we got in there. West Coast are 17th for goal assists with 6 a game. We're 8th for goal assists with 10.5 a game. West Coast are 18th in marks with only 71 per game. And we are 8th in marks with 90 per game. This is an interesting stat as well, because you'd think if we have the most amount of possessions, we would also have the most amount of marks, but we don't. This does indicate, I believe, that we are going a little more direct. Last year we were going a little bit backwards, we can get more marks. I think we're going a little bit more direct this year, so I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So West Coast, as you can see, really are struggling there, really on the bottom in really most of the major statistical categories. But we do have to be wary. As I said earlier in the video, they nearly beat Brisbane in round 2, and they will look at this match and they will earmark this as a match they could win. And also, I guess another thing to consider, they did make a statement last week dropping Tim Kelly, one of their better midfielders. He's been out of form, and the coach Andrew McQualter said, well, he wants to make a statement. That's probably a good thing to do from their point of view. It's pretty obvious he'll be back this week. Usually when that happens, they get dropped for a week and they come back. You would expect Tim Kelly would be pretty fired up to have a good game. So that's something we're going to have to be wary of. Put yourself in his shoes. You were dropped. You're one of the team's best players. You're probably going to be brought back in this week. We're going to have to be on our toes with Kelly, because I personally would be expecting a pretty big game from him. If I was him, I'd be wanting to play really, really well. I'm sure you guys, if you're in his shoes, would want to be playing really well as well. So this is West Coast's team on paper last week. Like I said, there'll probably be a change. Tim Kelly will probably be back in. There was no injuries for the Eagles last week, so I don't know how many they're going to drop. They might drop a couple of players based on their performances. This is a match we really should be winning. We've had a couple of good performances in a row, and it would be a real shame to back up those 2 good performances in a row with a loss in Perth. This really is an opportunity for us. West Coast not playing well. It's an opportunity to go into Anzac Day with 3 consecutive wins, not taking it for granted. But really, if we apply ourselves and we show the same level of commitment that we have the last couple of weeks, there's no reason why we can't get the 4 points in this game. Another thing to consider is that Jeremy McGovern, of course, one of West Coast's best players and easily their best defender, didn't play last week and hasn't played since round 3. He suffered a minor abductor injury in round 3. But he got through a significant session on the weekend, and assuming he gets through training on Wednesday, he'll be available for selection against the Bombers as well. So we might be seeing Tim Kelly and Jeremy McGovern both back into the side. So their team is going to be significantly strengthened. It must be acknowledged. I was just looking at the last time the teams played. We played them twice last year. We beat them by a goal in Perth earlier in the season, and then a bit later in the season we had a 30-point win at Marvel Stadium, where we actually struggled to shake them off. There's a lot of changes that we've had to that side. Harley Reid actually didn't play in that game for West Coast. He suffered a suspension and wasn't able to win the Rising Star as a result. But last time we played, these players played for the Bombers. We had Heppel playing, Cox was playing, Caldwell, Langford, Peter Wright, Stringer, Nick Hind, Guelphy, Kelly and Laverty. All those players probably, none of them will play against West Coast. Maybe Peter Wright possibly could, but really none of those players will play. That's half the team. And you compare that to what the team will probably look like. You can add to that team the players who didn't play against West Coast last time. Archie Roberts, Setterfield, Menzies, Dylan Shield, Zach Reed, Hobbs, Gresham, El Huali, Kako and Caddy. So there's at least 10 players different to our team than last year when we struggled to shake off West Coast at Marvel Stadium. So we have turned over a lot of our team. Not all those players are turnover players. Some of them just weren't injured and would be available. Players like Langford and Caldwell, of course, will come straight back in. But that's a big change to the team. That's half the team that has changed from the last time that we played the West Coast Eagles. So predictions, well, I think this match might be a little bit closer than people think. I think the Bombers, I'm picking them by 15 points. I think you have to tip Essendon on form. West Coast are just playing terribly, but they are going to be strengthened. They'll have Kelly coming back in, probably McGovern as well. They'll be anxious to atone. They're playing at home. They'll see this as a match they could win. It is a banana skin game for Essendon. To me, the onus is on us. If we turn up and we put the same kind of effort in for the last couple of weeks, we'll win. If we don't put the same effort in that we have over the last couple of weeks, we'll lose. It was simple as that. This is a small margin industry. You're 5% off, and if you're 5% off, that can be worth 40 points. If you're 10% off, that can be worth 10 goals. That's the kind of thing that we see. That's what we saw against the Adelaide Crows earlier in the season. You're 5 or 10% off, and it's a 10-goal difference. But the onus is on us. If we put the required effort in, we should win this game, and we should be going into Anzac Day with 3 consecutive wins, hopefully. So what do you guys think? Please leave a message in your comments, your thoughts on the game. Is anyone living in Western Australia going to be going to the game? Let me know. I've been over to Perth before. It's a great venue over there. I love it. So have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.